afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. In the approximately 3 weeks since Philando Castillo was shot and killed in the city of Falcon Heights, there have been numerous protests across the Twin Cities. Many of those protests have been focused in and around 1006 Summit, the governor's residence. Those protests have gone on for the better part of these last 3 weeks. And we have, beyond the protest, had some important community dialogue raised as a result of Philando's passing. We had an incredibly important conversation last week over at St. Paul College that was sponsored by the YWCA, hosted by Robin Hickman and Paul Williams, where people got a chance to have an opportunity to process the death of Philando and the issue of violence and police shootings, et cetera, not just shootings of civilians, but also the shootings of the police officers that we saw in Baton Rouge and in Dallas. It was a really important conversation. Last week, the Secretary of Education, Dr. King, was in town. We had an amazing opportunity to sit down with friends and coworkers of Philando over at J.J. Hill Montessori and have an incredibly important dialogue about the impact of Philando's death in that community, and heard some very, very powerful words from folks that were frustrated, angry, hurt, every emotion imaginable at Philando's passing and other shootings that have occurred across this country. We will continue to have those conversations. We will continue to have those dialogues. We will continue to move forward and work very hard on important issues that are facing particularly our young men of color in this community and across this nation. And we also recognize that as the capital city, we have a special duty to allow for peaceful protest and for people to exercise their First Amendment rights. We do that fully understanding the importance of it and fully welcoming the fact that people do have a right to exercise their First Amendment rights, and that they will particularly do it in the capital city, whether it is at the state capitol, the governor's residence, wherever that may be. And we will continue to allow that as long as it is peaceful, as long as it doesn't endanger folks, and as long as people continue to work with officers to make sure that while their First Amendment rights are being protected, that we do have to protect public safety as well. This morning, the St. Paul Police Department, along with others, did work very peacefully, I think very politely, with the protesters that had camped out in front of the governor's residence. The beginning stages of that were quite peaceful, and the folks that were out there were very collaborative and cooperative. We made it very clear, as we have done in the past over the last 3 weeks, that we will allow people to protest and exercise their First Amendment rights in front of the governor's residence, but they can't be in the streets. They can't be putting up structures that obstruct the pathways, the walkways in front of the governor's residence, and that while we recognize their right to be there, they have to do it within the bounds of the law. Earlier last week, or later last week, we think we came to a very clear understanding that folks needed to stay out of the street. Being in the street was dangerous. Being in the street posed too many hazards, and we made that very clear. Unfortunately, over the weekend, some folks that were out there protesting decided no longer to follow that agreement and decided further that they didn't want to have any conversation with their officers that were on the scene, including Chief Axtell, who will speak with you in a minute, who went out there and personally worked with some of the folks to just say, if you're up on the sidewalk, we understand you can be there, you can't be in the streets, and you can't be endangering folks. Unfortunately, after the beginning phases of what happened this morning, some folks became defiant. A few folks became, quite frankly, dangerous, and I'll let the chief outline some of the things that happened more specifically this morning. But it became very clear that for some of those folks, endangering folks was exactly what they wanted to do, including throwing things at passing cars when we tried to open up the street again, and some other things. Again, I'll let the chief outline more of the specifics. We continue to be committed to allowing for this dialogue to occur We continue to be committed to allow for peaceful protest and the exercise of First Amendment rights, but we have an obligation in the city of St. Paul to make sure that people are safe, that people follow the rules, and when that no longer is the case, we need to take action as we did today. Again, I'll turn it over at this time to Chief Axtell for more specifics about the actions today. There were multiple arrests. Folks have been cited, mostly released as far as I know. And at the end of the day, we hope that we can, as we had, what I thought we had was strike the right accord between that peaceful protest, exercising of the First Amendment rights of the protesters with public safety and truly peaceful protest. At this time, Chief Axtell, I'll turn it over to you for comment.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Coleman. Over the last 20 days, we have worked very closely with our group of protesters in front of the governor's mansion, and we've had great dialogue with many of them. And I'm talking about a few today, that the few that really I think diminish the message and make it difficult for all of us to work together. And that's really what's occurring right now in our city. This morning, after 20 days of working with our protest community, coming up with dialogue, Sunday night I was out personally meeting with members of our protest community who had assured me that they were going to have a candlelight vigil for 4 hours. They're going to reopen the road, and that didn't occur. So I went out and visited with them at about 1 in the morning and was told that they weren't going to reopen the road again. So the changing dynamics that occur during these times when we really try to work collaboratively, do things the St. Paul way, is really what we try to do. And there comes a time when roads are being shut down in all of our community. It's my job as your chief to serve our 300,000 people that live in the city, and the visitors, and the workers that come to the city, to make sure that they can move about freely. And really that's what it's all about, and safely. And when those thresholds are jeopardized, we owe it to our public to make sure that we look out for the interest of our entire public. And that's what we continue to do in our city. This morning we had 10 booked in the Ramsey County Jail, 15 cited and released, and there's a few others right now being processed. And again, this is a last resort for us. This is the last thing we want to do, is make arrests. We want to work with our entire community to make sure that the First Amendment rights, the free speech, the lawful activities are supported. We're going to continue to do that to the best of our ability. But again, today, I'm proud of our St. Paul police officers who acted reasonably and with necessarily and with respect. And we're going to continue to do that, even though our officers continue to be tired with dealing with these very difficult situations. We're going to continue to do it the St. Paul way. So thank you very much.
Time for a few questions.
So what's the plan now going forward? Is it going to just let them protest indefinitely, and then if it blocks the street again or blocks the sidewalk again, then move them out again like today?
Well, I never show the playbook, because we don't want to paint ourselves in a corner, if you will. Again, we're going to continue to collaboratively work with our protest community, our community in general, and come up with a way that we can facilitate the peaceful protesters and also make sure we have safe passage throughout our entire city.
Chief,
So.
15 arrested and cited and released.
15 were cited and released, and 10 were booked.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
Today we first saw these signs go up talking about the different city ordinances, state laws that we're violating. Do you wish you could put that out there earlier to get that message out, to get out of the street earlier?
We had handed those flyers out that said the exact same thing significantly over the last 20 days to make sure that everybody understood what the rules, the laws of our city and our state were, and we're going to continue to do that. So we're trying to communicate and work collaboratively as much as possible.
Could you talk maybe, Mayor, too, about your involvement and who made the decision to make that go this morning?
First of all, to your last point, we have continuously and clearly communicated the rules for protesters out on Summit Avenue in front of the governor's residence. And I think the signs that went up today were just simply affirming what we have been repeatedly telling the folks out there over the last several weeks. With respect, as I've mentioned before, I do not make tactical decisions for the St. Paul Police Department. They're the experts. They're the ones that do that. I was in very close consultation with the chief, including since Sunday night when they retook the street in front of Summit Avenue, in front of 1006 Summit. So we have been very, very clearly communicating that. Obviously, we have, my job as the mayor of the city of St. Paul is also to try to strike that balance, but to do that with respect for the experts that know how to do it. I think one of the things that we've seen is folks that have, some of the local residents that have been frustrated. They certainly have been contacting members of my staff. I've met with them. We have heard repeatedly of the frustrations from a neighborhood perspective. But I have said, as I said in a communication to the residents yesterday, the decisions of how and when to enforce the law will be made by the St. Paul Police Department, not by me.
So did Governor Dayton have any say in it, or was he told ahead of time to go in Philadelphia for the convention?
We have been in very close communication with the governor's staff, and I guess indirectly through them with the governor, who is, as you said, out of town. But he was fully apprised of the actions that were being taken.
Mayor, the neighbors that I spoke to one of them described it as a living hell since this whole thing has begun. They don't understand why you can't just get them out of there. This is their neighborhood. They can't sleep, whether it's last night or the night before. Something's always happened around 2:30 in the morning. What do you say to these neighbors who are just sick of this?
Well, first of all, that we're very empathetic. We do understand that, and we have heard very loud and clear the frustrations that they have had. But they have to also understand that they live across the street from the governor's residence, that there is a First Amendment right to protest in the United States of America, and folks that are exercising it and doing it within the bounds of the law, need to be allowed to do that. And to the extent that the decision to move them out or to enforce certain, some of the decisions that the police department have made, those are tactical decisions based on what is in the best interest of public safety. And so we are balancing out public safety with the First Amendment rights, with the peace and tranquility of a neighborhood, but one that happens to be across the street from an important symbol of government.
How long can this go on? Is there a point where you guys have a cutoff time, no more?
There is, it is a day-to-day decision based on the factors that we have outlined, which is the balancing of First Amendment rights with the need to protect public safety.
One more question.
Do you know anything about, I know that you're not involved in the case, or have you heard anything about where they are with the BCA with this particular case?
Just that it's still under investigation by the BCA.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.